Nanjiani for the honorary degree, Doctor of Humane Letters.
In a way, Grinnell can take some credit for Kumail Nanjiani's enormous success in comedy. When he arrived in Iowa from Karachi, Pakistan, he had never seen a stand-up comic before. A friend showed him a Jerry Seinfeld comedy special, and he was hooked. After getting his start in comedy in Chicago, which included a one-man show called Unpronounceable, Nanjiani headed to New York to pursue work as a stand-up comic. He typically performed 25 nights a month to hone his craft. Over time, he became a go-to guest on critically beloved comic shows including The Colbert Report, Veep, Key & Peele, Broad City, and Portlandia. In 2014, he landed the role of Dinesh, a witty but hapless software engineer on the HBO hit Silicon Valley. This summer, Nanjiani will add a new role to his already packed resume, that of movie star. Teaming up with comedy superstar and producer Judd Apatow, Nanjiani starred in the movie The Big Sick, which he co-wrote with his wife, Emily Gordon. The film is a romantic comedy about culture, illness, and relationships that is based on how Nanjiani and Gordon met and fell in love. After the movie's wildly successful premiere at Sundance earlier this year, reviews called the movie an instantly winning heart stealer. Amazon landed distribution rights. The movie will premiere nationwide in July. Beyond his television and film successes, Nanjiani brings his inimitable style to Twitter, where he has attracted more than 1 million followers. Whether politics or pop culture, Nanjiani writes with insight and humor. For pursuing comedy that is both incisive and deeply heartfelt, and for succeeding in this work at the very highest levels, we are pleased to recognize Kumail Nanjiani, class of 2001.
Kumail Nanjiani, on recommendation of the faculty of this college and with approval of the Board of Trustees, I admit you to the degree Doctor of Humane Letters, honoris causa.
Good? Okay. Can I put the hat back on?
Yeah.
All right.
And let me give you the...
Thank you. Congratulations. Thank you so much.
President Kington, I have the honor to present Emily Fitch for the honorary degree, Doctor of Humane Letters.
For many alumni, Emily Fitch is more than just a longtime supporter of Grinnell. Emily, says one trustee, is one of the patron saints of Grinnell. Arriving in Grinnell in 1948 with her husband, John, Emily Fitch began what has become a 70-year relationship with the college. She enrolled in Spanish classes at the college and used that coursework to become a Spanish teacher at Grinnell High School. She taught at the school for 24 years. From her very earliest years at Grinnell, Fitch has been one of the college's most effective advocates. In the 1950s and 1960s, she played an important role for African American scholar athletes attending Grinnell. She provided a consistently warm and welcoming presence, regularly hosting students and their families overnight. She has welcomed hundreds of other newcomers to the town as well, including new faculty and their families. For the past 3 decades, she has opened her home and backyard for the annual alumni soccer picnic, an event which routinely attracts more than 100 people. And today, at 92 years of age, she continues to play a vital role in the life of Grinnell. She often hosts trustees when they come to campus, attends numerous campus events, and serves, says one nominator, as a beacon of generosity, good sense, and wisdom. For her 7 decades of service to the college and for the great joy she brings to that role, we are proud to honor Emily Fitch.
On the recommendation of the faculty of this college and with the approval of the Board of Trustees, I hereby admit Emily Fitch to the degree Doctor of Humane Letters, honoris causa. Oh, you can be going. You can be going.
Good morning to you all. Graduates, parents, family members, faculty, administrators, and a multitude of friends. I want to thank those among you who nominated me for this award. I feel very humbled in accepting the honor. But first, I want to emphasize that I represent countless numbers of others who have, as I have in a support position, enjoyed the richness of precious relationships with students, faculty, administrators, and alumni of this distinguished college. In 1948, John, after coaching at the university level, had the good fortune of accepting a teaching and coaching position here at the college. He loved his relationships with his scholar athletes, and after 50 years of coaching, he reluctantly retired, but continued to enjoy his remaining years with many returning alumni. And to you, the class of 2017, congratulations. I have met a few of you, and I hope that after your 4 years here, you are prepared to take on the awesome task of attacking the problems of this nation and indeed the world. Good luck to you, and enjoy this beautiful day. Thank you.
President Kington, I have the honor to present Barb Van Ausdall for the honorary degree Doctor of Humanities.
At Grinnell's Davis Elementary, Barb Van Ausdall is an inspiring, demanding, and life-changing teacher. Mrs. V, as she is known to her students, starts each school year with a homework assignment for herself. Before the first day, she studies the previous yearbooks so she can greet each student by name when they enter her classroom. The high expectations that she sets for herself are the same ones she sets for her students. She expects that they will work hard, take risks, and contribute to their classroom in their own unique ways. For each class's annual musical, Van Ausdall designs every role with the students' strengths in mind. They fully inhabit their characters, preparing tirelessly and ultimately achieving far more than they believed was possible. Van Ausdall has brought the same enthusiasm to the 3rd and 4th grade lunchtime language learners program. The program, launched through Grinnell College's Spark Tank Innovation Challenge, brings students together to learn French and Spanish basics. Van Ausdall has helped Grinnell's language specialists and coordinators develop activities that students love and that drive their interest in languages for a lifetime. The larger goal of Van Ausdall's work is to inspire students' love of learning, to develop their sense of persistence in the face of challenges, and to let them know that they are loved and appreciated. For her helping her students become the best versions of themselves, we are pleased to recognize Barb Van Ausdall.
Barb Van Ausdall, on the recommendation of the faculty of this college and with approval of the Board of Trustees, I admit you to the degree Doctor of Humanities, honoris causa.
Cheerios, Beethoven, photography. I love that in the field of education, 3 seemingly unrelated elements can come together to form a powerful learning experience for students. Recently, my 4th grade music students arranged Cheerios on a staff to notate the famous melody from Beethoven's Ninth Symphony. Then they took photos of their work before playing the melodies and, well, eating them. I admit a little concern when I considered my students' conversations around their dinner tables that evening. I could just picture a parent asking, "What did you learn at school today?" And my student answering, "Beethoven is crunchy." The dinner table is where so many of my own learning experiences occurred growing up. You might not think that learning Latin over supper sounds like a blast, but here's how it would work. Bite of meatloaf, fork full of carrots, swallow of milk, then my father's voice. The word muscle comes from the Latin musculus, which means little mouse. Have you noticed that when you flex and relax your arm muscles, it almost looks as though a little mouse is running along inside your arm? This, followed by lots of arm flexing, oohing and ahhing, and "That's disgusting-ing," in between more bites of meatloaf. As was the case for perhaps most of you, my first teachers were my parents. Now, Dad didn't limit himself to teaching us Latin roots. My sisters and I were delighted when he helped us to master an entire sentence in German. We were convinced of this phrase's monumental importance as we recited over and over, "Sie finden uns am schnellsten auf den gelben Seiten." When one of us finally thought to ask Dad what the sentence meant, he replied, "You'll find us fastest in the yellow pages." He had seen that on a sign on the door of a business and thought it sounded fun. From my mother, I've learned different lessons. The art of multitasking, for instance, before that term was ever coined. And Mom taught us, our family, about remaining calm under pressure. I remember a time when several of us were working in the kitchen. I became aware of my mother moving from the stove toward the sink, carrying a pot holder in flames. As she approached the sink where my dad was standing, in the same tone of voice one might use to comment on the weather, Mom said, "Excuse me, dear, this is on fire." The lesson, remain calm and polite under pressure. Considering my Latin and German learning experiences as a child, it's not surprising that the nomination, which resulted in my being honored today, had a language connection. It has been my privilege during these past 2 academic years to work with 3 members of your class of 2017, Liz Nelson, John Gallagher, and Christine Hood, on a foreign language program for Grinnell's 3rd and 4th grade students. 27 Grinnell College students have poured time, effort, and boundless enthusiasm into making Spanish and French accessible to our students at Davis Elementary, and I am incredibly grateful, as I am overwhelmingly humbled to stand in front of you as a representative of the teaching profession. I thank you sincerely for this honor. Now, many of you graduates will not enter the field of education professionally, but each of you has so much to teach others. I challenge you, please share your knowledge, communicate your ideas, show your skills. Go ahead, teach someone, which I think would make a very fun t-shirt. Yes, I thought about tossing the shirt out into the crowd, but as my husband and son can affirm, it would be as likely to land on President Kington's head as it would be to land in one of your laps. I'll just keep it here with me. Let me finish by sharing a few examples of what makes teaching a worthy pursuit and an absolute joy in my life. When a 3rd grader raises his hand to exclaim, "Hey, both of those measures have 4 beats because 2 half notes add up to the same as 4 quarter notes," it's a good day. When I hear 7 consecutive correct notes on a soprano recorder, it's a good day. When a 4th grader who has seen me model kind behavior stops on her way to recess to help a boy whose pencil box has just exploded all over the floor, it's a good day. When a student interrupts my class to offer me a birthday cupcake, it's a good day. And that's not about the cupcake. It's about the positive connection I've made with that student that makes him think of celebrating with me, even though I'm just the music teacher. Okay, if it's chocolate, it's sort of about the cupcake too. In your chosen field, the measure of a good day might be significantly different from those I've just described. Whatever your measures, it is my hope that you will indeed have a good day.
President Kington, I have the honor to present Daniel Werner for the honorary degree Doctor of Laws.
When the voiceless need a voice, they can depend on Daniel Werner. When seasonal and migrant farm workers needed help with employment and wage issues, Werner represented them in federal court as an attorney for farm worker legal services. When low-wage workers in New York needed support with employment and civil rights claims, he took on their cases as co-founder of the Workers' Rights Law Center of New York. And when immigrant labor trafficking survivors needed his help to fight the illegal practices of a large construction firm, he was there. Werner and a team of lawyers at the Southern Poverty Law Center fought and won the biggest case of its kind. With Werner's guidance, the legal team in the case brought devastating details to light. Pipe fitters and welders from India had paid up to $25,000 to be considered for positions rebuilding the Gulf Coast after Hurricanes Katrina and Rita, relying on false promises about earning permanent United States residency. They rented out overcrowded trailers that packed 24 workers into a trailer with a single bathroom. The legal fight turned into a 7-year battle. Werner and his colleagues helped immigrants with little or no knowledge of English to tell their stories, and SPLC helped the leaders win an unprecedented $14 million award. To date, it is the largest of its kind. Werner continues to work for justice in many ways. He has co-authored a book for lawyers who work on cases linked to human trafficking. He has also lectured internationally on these issues. Now, Werner is directing SPLC's Southeast Immigrant Freedom Initiative, an ambitious project to provide representation to every immigrant detained in the southeastern states. For his unflagging efforts to call powerful organizations to account when they mistreat vulnerable workers and to protect immigrant civil rights, we are pleased to recognize Daniel Werner, class of 1991.
Daniel Werner, on recommendation of the faculty of this college and with approval of the Board of Trustees, I admit you to the degree Doctor of Laws honoris causa.
In 1991, I left this place. As a December graduate, I gathered with a few others at Grinnell House to receive our BAs and move on. Now at the age of 47, I'm finally receiving a degree at a Grinnell Commencement. What an honor it is to share this moment with all of you and with my wife, Nan, and my children, Abe, Zeke, and Carmela. And what a journey it's been, and how lucky I am. To paraphrase the Schuyler sisters in the musical Hamilton, and to play ultimate frisbee with my head, look around at how lucky we are to be alive right now. The current political and social upheaval and chaos will beget creative responses, and world-changing ideas will emerge. Your minds, based on your life experience and your learning here at Grinnell, are conduits for those ideas. The process you've learned here of arguing, honing, narrowing, expanding, editing, arguing more, and then honing again will generate these ideas. Grinnell has nurtured this, and now you have the tools to nurture creativity in others. And as you embark in your journey, find partners who are certain change is coming, and who view Dr. King's faith in the moral universe bending towards justice not as an excuse to stand by and assume the bend will happen without engaging in the difficult work, but as a call to action to force that bend. Because in justice work, real change makers are optimistic activists. People who look at their day-to-day hard, uncomfortable, often mundane, and usually chaotic work as means for progress rather than a sign of defeat. People who set aside ego and self-righteousness and empower positive partners and successors to generate the great ideas and make change happen. The alternative to optimistic activism, cynicism, makes the discomfort of justice work intolerable. Without trusting in the effectiveness of intentional and intelligent justice work, despair and burnout lurk around every corner. Granted, there's a lot to be cynical about. Just look around. But try looking around without resting your eyes on the causes for cynicism. Look around at how lucky we are. When we march, we see people who have never marched before. When arriving Muslims and refugees were facing a cruel and unconstitutional ban, and as immigrant families are getting ripped apart by enforcement dragnets, thousands of lawyers have volunteered days and sometimes weeks of their time to protect fundamental due process rights. This is a time when a dreamer who is undocumented and has known no place other than the United States has the anger, strength, and inspiration to stand up in front of a crowd and say who she is with pride, I am an immigrant, and this country is my home. This is a time when federal government whistleblowers risk their livelihoods to preserve democracy and the rule of law, and fearless journalists amplify whistleblowers' voices. This is a time when I can stand in front of this graduating class and say with confidence that you are the change makers. You have spent your last 4 years at Grinnell preparing for now. As you embark into the chaos and conflict of your post-college lives and work during this particular historic pivot point of mobilization, outrage, and creativity, there will be rare moments when the clicks and the cracks and the static sink into a rhythm. Those are the revolutionary moments. How lucky you are to be emerging from this place where the past 4 years have provided you with tools of intentionality, intellect, and empowerment. How lucky you are. Thank you for this great honor. To the class of 2017, congratulations. I look forward to seeing you in the streets, at the airports, in the courtrooms, and empowering new leaders in the laboratories of creativity and change. Thank you.
It is now my privilege as president to recognize members of the faculty who, after long and devoted tenure at the college, are entering upon emeritus status, and we have 7 this year. I now ask Sig Barber, Professor of German, to rise. As a professor, Sig Barber's nominal role was to teach his students the intricacies of German grammar and the complex ideas of German authors. But what students remember decades after their Grinnell graduation is Barber's warmth and wisdom. They remember the classes that culminated with home-cooked meals often served in his backyard. They remember the thoughtfulness with which he considered their questions, whether it was about a class assignment or a decision about their future. He always took his students seriously. He took his work as a scholar seriously as well. Highlights include 3 books, a book of grammar, Amadis de Gala and the German Enlightenment, and a translation of a seminal work on German philosopher Martin Heidegger. While Barber was committed to serving the college and spent multiple terms on the executive council, he also thought beyond it. He wanted his work in the community to reflect well on the college. He was an enthusiastic supporter of Grinnell's liberal arts in the prison program, taught multiple courses at Newton Correctional Facility. He served on the Grinnell Regional Medical Center's hospital board and performed and directed in local theater productions. As a part of the popular faculty-founded Too Many String Band, he plays guitar, dobro, and banjo in off and on-campus gigs. For these and other activities, the Grinnell Chamber of Commerce honored him with an Outstanding Educator and Citizens Award. For his unwavering commitment to serving his students, Grinnell College, and the community, we are pleased to honor Sig Barber. I now ask Bob Cadmus, Professor of Physics, to rise. Bob Cadmus knows that not everyone grows up loving science, but he also knows that the right nudges can make even reluctant learners see the excitement and the possibility that science offers. Perhaps his greatest success at NIH has come through his work with the Grant O. Gale Observatory, a facility he transformed from an idea to reality during his first 6 years on campus. Cadmus used the observatory as a starting point for some of his most important work as a scientist. His research interests included stars that change brightness, known as variable stars, and lunar occultations, events in which the moon passes between a star and the observer. The observatory also has been a busy hub of activity over the years. Cadmus has hosted hundreds of events over the years, and many alumni say they still think of Cadmus every time they look up into the night sky. Students have been similarly transformed by Cadmus's physics teaching. By linking daily class sessions to the discipline's larger concepts, Cadmus helped students see the big picture even as they burrowed into the details. Through his Physics in the Arts course, he brought science and non-science students together to see how different disciplines could inform one another. Even students who rarely set foot in a science classroom likely know Cadmus from the long-standing and, again, much-loved Too Many String Band as well, which performs regularly on and off campus. For helping thousands of people find the very human joy in science and astronomy, we are pleased to recognize Bob Cadmus. I now recognize Professor of Art History Tim Chasson, who could not be with us today. For Art History Professor Tim Chasson, the joy he felt teaching others about great art and architecture was rivaled only by his delight in working with students from many disciplines. He appreciated both their enthusiasm and the perspectives of the various fields that they brought to his classroom. Chasson's primary responsibility was to teach the history of art and architecture of Western Europe, focusing on the period from late antiquity through the Renaissance. He served as an advisor for students preparing for graduate school in architecture, and during his tenure at Grinnell, he developed a course on architecture and urbanism in Papal and Fascist Rome, and another on architecture and sculpture of Gothic cathedrals. He worked in concert with the French department to teach a course in French on architecture and urbanism in Paris from the Middle Ages to modernity. In addition, the college's extensive collection of architectural prints by the famous 18th century artist Giovanni Battista Piranesi made it possible for students to explore many aspects of Roman history in the art department's recurring exhibition seminars. He was particularly involved in study abroad options for students working both with the Grinnell and London program and the Associated Colleges of the Midwest program in Florence. Teaching in Florence furthered work in his primary research area, the so-called giant Latin Bibles produced in medieval Italy for monasteries and cathedrals. For his passionate teaching and research on some of the world's most remarkable art and architecture, we are pleased to recognize Tim Chasson. I now ask Jan Gross, Seth Richards Professor in Modern Languages, to rise. In her 4 decades at Grinnell, Jan Gross has helped the college live up to some of its most important promises. She built strong and lasting relationships with her students, helped bring diverse and international voices to campus, and strengthened the programs that give Grinnellians the tools to succeed in the wider world. In the course of her work as a scholar of French literature and culture of the French-speaking world, she helped produce translations and publications on contemporary Algerian writers and playwrights. This includes Slimane Beniasse's 9/11 novel, The Last Night of a Damned Soul. During this process, Gross has developed strong working relationships with many of the artists themselves. She taught their work in her classes on contemporary Francophone cultures and theater. And whenever she's able, she finds ways to bring them to campus to share their perspectives, both in class and with the entire campus. She brings the same care and attention to maintaining relationships with former students, many of whom go on to pursue international careers across disciplines. She frequently finds ways to bring them back to campus as alumni scholars, sharing their experiences and advice with a new generation of students. Gross has developed and nurtured some of Grinnell's most cherished programs. She chaired a faculty development program for oral communication across the curriculum, a program that still thrives. She also led the International Studies Planning Committee, a precursor to Grinnell's Institute for Global Engagement. For her efforts to strengthen Grinnell by developing lasting relationships and programs, we are pleased to recognize Jan Gross. I now recognize Professor of German, Jenny Michaels, who could not be here today as well. Jenny Michaels believes in the power of second drafts. She makes every student who writes a paper in her class come and talk to her and get feedback, and then she makes them rewrite the paper. These second drafts are where much of the learning happens. These second drafts are what make students better. And this philosophy that students should test ideas, learn from their mistakes, and grow beyond them is more important to Michaels than any single topic she's teaching in class. Writing, like so much else in life, is a process worth practicing and improving. This lesson benefits students not just in their coursework, but in the rest of their lives. Michael's belief in the necessity of testing and tinkering is one that she has brought to her own coursework as well. Over the course of her career, she has developed dozens of new courses. She frequently adjusted the reading list, even in her most time-tested classes, from introductory German language courses to a course on the German novella. Her scholarly work focuses primarily on 20th and 21st century German and Austrian literature and culture. In her field, she's made significant contributions. She served as president of the German Studies Association, now one of the premier German studies associations worldwide. She was also president of the Rocky Mountain Modern Languages Association. For her consistent efforts to help students do their very best work and for applying these same philosophies to her teaching and professional life, we are pleased to recognize Jenny Michaels. I now ask Mark Snyder, professor of physics, to rise. From his work as an instructor in a single classroom to his policy advice for college administrators, including myself, across the country, Mark Snyder has spent his career finding ways to help a wider range of students thrive in the sciences and in higher education. As a professor, Snyder developed the discovery-based physics curriculum. This hands-on course is designed to build student enthusiasm for the discipline through cooperative activities and real-world lessons. He was instrumental in developing what is now the Grinnell Science Program, which offers holistic support to a diverse group of students in the sciences. Through early orientation programs, academic support, and research opportunities, students in the program are far more likely to stay in the sciences. Since the program launched in 1992, the number of students of color at Grinnell graduating with science degrees has increased by more than 300%. The program has received recognition from the White House for its approach and success. Later, as chair of the faculty and then associate dean, Snyder took the best elements of the Grinnell Science Program to develop new initiatives. As a co-organizer of a new faculty mentoring program, he has worked to provide more robust support to faculty making the transition to Grinnell. He also developed the Partners in Education program, which helps students who have had difficulty during their first semester at Grinnell. Snyder has shared some of the most important lessons from his work in publications, including the Chronicle of Higher Education. For his career-long efforts to help create an inclusive and supportive environment in the sciences and in higher education, we are pleased to recognize Mark Snyder. Last but not least, I now recognize Professor of Music Roger Vedder, who could not be here today. To open students' eyes to the vast and varied world of music, ethnomusicologist Roger Vedder traveled to far-flung locations around the globe. He recorded music and collected examples of common instruments in Ghana and Sri Lanka and Zimbabwe. But most important, he took everything he learned and shared it with the Grinnell community and the world. He gave generations of students a new musical passion while sharing significantly scholarly work with anyone who has an internet connection. Over the course of his career, Vedder taught hundreds of students gamelan, the traditional ensemble music of the Indonesian island of Java. Through one-on-one lessons and group rehearsals, students learn not just to appreciate these percussion instruments, but to truly love them. After gamelan performances, he often invited the entire ensemble to his home for dinner, an event that the alumni recall fondly. Many returned to campus years later requesting to revisit the music they remembered from their student days. To better share his best work, Vedder built websites dedicated to some of his scholarly passions. These include Grinnell's musical instrument collection, field recordings of music in Ghana, and the use of traditional music in tourism encounters. Vedder brought the same tireless dedication to his professional activities at Grinnell. He served 4 times as chair of the Department of Music and twice as chair of the Humanities Division. For his dedication to bringing the vastness of the musical world to Grinnell's doorstep, we are pleased to recognize Roger Vedder. I now ask Professor Dennis Hughes and Martin Manelli to please stand. It is my honor to recognize those faculty members now moving to senior faculty status. Senior faculty status recognizes those members of the faculty who wish to be released from their regular full-time teaching obligations to pursue scholarly and professional activities associated with the college. And we today acknowledge those 2 professors for transitioning to senior faculty status. And now the fun part.
President Kington and ladies and gentlemen, the Dean of the College,